Bonjour, everybody. Hi, this is Neshi Lilcots. Welcome to Living in Two Worlds with co-hosts Ortrun and Carl Franklin. And you guys are in for a treat tonight. Tonight, it happens to be Tuesday, September 29th, and we get to talk to our two elders here at Star Nations all about their books. And wait till you find out some of the interesting things behind the scenes about their books. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to ask them some questions about their individual books and also the collaborative work that they do together. And I know that many of you know Carl and Ortun already. And so if you'd like to join us for the conversation, please pop into the chat and you can ask your own questions too. And welcome everybody who is in the live chat, both here at Facebook and also at YouTube. Yes, I said YouTube. Because our partners at Be Live TV, they we actually were part of the beta test. They added live streaming to YouTube, so we can go live in both Facebook and YouTube now. So yay! So for all of those that have joined us in YouTube, thank you so much for being here as well. And if you're watching this by the recording, thank you so much for making time in your day to join us through the recorded version of this show. I do appreciate you guys being here. So let's bring Carl and Ortrun on so that we can do a little bit better introduction of them individually. Hello, you two.
Hello, everybody, and welcome.
It's wonderful to be together with you again. We made it this time. Sorry about last month. There was just a mix-up. So.
You know, and that happens on occasion, I think, because, you know, I mean, when we are broadcasting to literally around all around the world, sometimes we get caught up in that time zone thing, you know, and because I live in the central time zone, and Carl and Ortrun and our producer Rob, they live in the eastern time zone. Sometimes I'll say one time and I mean it in my time zone, and you know how that goes. So anyway, it's so good to be here with you guys tonight. It's always good to see you.
Thank you. It's always good to be together.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So one of the ideas that I had for this particular show and the topic is really about how how we're able to share information, not with just our audience, but through your books, both your individual books and also the collaborative work that you do together through your school, our spiritual ascension, right, website. And I think it's a really good opportunity, especially in the time that we find ourselves in the ascension process here on earth and all the stuff that's happening out there. I think it might be a good time to have a conversation about how you began your journey, why you wrote the books that you did, and the process that it was for you guys. Being a married couple and writing books, I know a couple years apart, but still, you know, that it takes time away from family because there's a lot of work to a book, right? So, Ortrun, if you could give us a little bit of a background of how you're connected to the Egyptian mysteries, because really that's the basis of your book. And so if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, and here's the book. I don't know if you can see it or not. And it's entitled, can you see that title?
Yep. Yeah, it's good. You can just hold it up and we can see it fine.
Can you hold that? Up a little bit more. A little higher. There. No,
there we go.
Okay, that's really good. I'll put my hand here. Thank you, Carl. Yes, it's an interesting story, and some of it is actually written about in the book, how I came to writing the book, Key of Life, Ancient Truths Integrated into the Modern World. I've always been fascinated with mythology and really just learning about different things. My sister-in-law was probably my greatest influence with that because she herself had a guru. She's a little bit old. She was, well, I might have been in my 20s, just probably a good 10, 14 years even, older than me actually. So she had a guru. She followed a guru and she learned numerology, and all these things just were fascinating to me. And so when we would visit, I'd just be just drawn in and hearing whatever I could hear. And then James Campbell, with the different programs he had on about mythology, different uh, the philosophies, the religions, that was just always so fascinating to me. But that's all I knew that it was. And of course, in our town in Jackson, Michigan, there was no yoga class. But when a woman came from Venezuela, and she started a yoga class in this little town. It's not so little, but Jackson, Michigan is about, 30,000 people at the time.
Mhm.
And I was one of the first ones to sign up. That's how I was introduced to meditation, was through that. When Carl and the other hand, Carl, I guess maybe you want to, can you tell how he came into it at this time, or you want me to share that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, because the story all fits together.
Yeah, I was a Lutheran minister in Jackson, and seminary did not prepare me in terms of the counseling that comes, because people expect personal counseling, not just spiritual counseling from a minister. And so I went while I was still a minister, went to Western and got a master's in psychology and counseling. And one of my professors, he spent one session talking about the subconscious mind. Now, yeah, sure. I know, and everybody knows the God is subconscious, but I didn't know anything about it. And he really, really whetted my appetite.
Mm.
It's a major part of the brain. And I made a resolution right there in his class to myself that I'm going to do everything in my power to learn to use my total mind, subconscious and conscious mind. And it wasn't within a matter of 3 or 4 months, a gentleman came into my life. He was in his 70s. His adult life, he had been a Jesuit monk. He left for some reason, and he supported himself by teaching classes and also as a hypnotist with patients in surgery who could not take anesthetic.
Wow.
And he was a lonely old man. He came and lived with us for probably 3 or 4 weeks and put on a number of classes at my church and at other places around Jackson. And I was to every one. And I want to say that I feel that I was probably one of the best students he ever had. And he taught me to get down to the end of the alpha state within a matter of seconds. And ever since then, and I was 36 at that time, and ever since then, I've been meditating virtually every day and sometimes multiple times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I began channeling my sermons and reading the same lessons that I'd always read, but understanding them from a much higher level of insight and understanding, and was really off and running on a spiritual path. After a couple of years, I had to leave the Lutheran ministry because I'd moved too far ahead of where Marty Luther was. And if you're a Lutheran minister or any minister, you can't go beyond the teachings of the founder of that denomination or religion. So, and I'm not going to let anybody limit my spiritual growth.
Yeah.
So I've been on my own and have continued, meditation, study, etc. And that's how I came to be where I am today.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Excuse me. Go ahead.
I said, thank goodness that you both were very dedicated, made a commitment, made the decision to walk the paths that you did, because here you are today, right?
Yes.
Right. And we were guided, he was guided somehow. He was guided with what he just told you. But for me, it was an interesting thing because, as I said, I was interested in these things because of my sister-in-law being interested in. That was my first introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and when he was going to, he was minister at the Lutheran Church, and I was married for a short period of time, but he performed our marriage. And I really liked Carl. I thought he was a great man. But other than that, that's what I thought. We knew each other because we had children in nursery school years prior. So we knew just of each other, and that was it. But he would talk about things like, oh, this is just so unusual. Like nobody understood what he was talking about. And meditation or things of that sort and the way he thinks. And I would just say, yeah, okay. It was nothing new to me because I was very familiar with all those concepts, but none of his people were at the church. So anyhow, then it came that actually he left the church, but also was in the process. He and his wife decided to go their separate ways. And by that time, mine was pretty right at the fringe also and into the fringe. And he called me and asked me how I was doing. And I didn't want to talk about it because I was at work and I was really quite embarrassed about saying, okay, this is a second marriage. I can't make that work. What's wrong with me? Oh. Well, anyhow, so I just threw the question back at him and I said, how are you doing? And he told me what was happening. He said, well, Norma and I are getting divorced. And I got this big thump in my heart, and it was like my heart was exploding, and I knew he was the one I was going to marry. So really truly it was like 14 months later and we were married. So it was just very, very quick once it started rolling. And interesting enough, I had this desire to go to his church, and I was Catholic background, but thinking, oh, I should really attend there, and I wouldn't do it. And finally, when they would not marry me at the Catholic church, they wouldn't even talk to me. I called, and I had always been a good Catholic and attended school there. And I called about remarrying. And they said, there's nothing we can do for you. And they hung up on me. They never even talked to me in person.
Ouch.
And then, wow, there's something wrong here. So that's when I said to my second husband to be, maybe Carl would marry us. So that's really how we got there. But the universe was prodding me to go there. And it's like, okay, so I had to get married to get over there because I wasn't doing it on my own. And apparently my guys wanted me to get over there. And if you're not going to do it on your own, we're going to have you to get married and not be together for very long.
Great. Oh my gosh. It puts a whole another frame around the words soulmate and kindred spirits.
Right.
I mean, for Carl to be talking about meditation and the spirit realm and all of that, and there were probably very few people at the time, like you said, that really connected with that, but you did.
Yes.
Yeah, because Neshi, that was like 48 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's how long we've been in spiritual metaphysics. So
yeah.
Each not together all that time, but we've been married for, well, it'll be 44
46.
years.
46.
46. Oh my
Yes.
goodness. Losing track. Anyways, it's been a long time, but it's been a good journey. It's been very much a learning journey in many ways, because it doesn't matter whether you're soulmates or twin souls. There are challenging times too in any kind of relationship. So we have really learned and grown from one another. Right. But what I wanted to say was, before I even started back at Carl's church or went there, one day I went into this 5 and 10 store. It was I'm not even sure what the name it was. It was either Walgreen or or Kresge's. Yeah. And I walked over to their jewelry section and I looked into the case and I saw the Ankh. Here's the Ankh, which is a little hard to see in there.
Yep, but it's good.
Okay. Yep. So, but I saw this thing that I'd never seen before, and I said, "Oh, everlasting life." And so I bought it, and I wore the Ankh for a good 5-6 years before he and I then met up. And so. And I still kept wearing it because I just liked it. That's all there was to it. So I already had this talisman that I was wearing, and not knowing why. It was just that the universe said, "Hey, oh, there was a recognition." I had that recognition. So then, when Carl and I were married, we moved to the Grand Rapids area, and within a very short time, we were around quite a few metaphysicians. It was 2 years in. We had met some wonderful. You talk about elders; they were our elders back then.
Yeah.
And at one point, I said to them, because I said, why don't we try and have a meditation every month and get these different groups that were in the area together and let's meditate together. So that's really how I met John Davis, because he was one of the people that attended.
Really? I didn't know that.
Right.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. So we did, and it really lasted 3 years, which is amazing. That every month that all these groups got together.
Every week, honey.
Well, no, that was at our house, honey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You're thinking
yeah.
of something different. All right.
Yeah, right. So with the different groups, these different metaphysical groups, we got together once a month.
Mhm.
So that was just a really wonderful thing, I think, that merging together and actually doing that kind of work together. What
Right.
Carl's talking about is, but during this time, we started, well, when we went to Coptics, they just pulled us in. And they wanted us right up front, right off the bat. And it's like, why? Why? Well, it was just like, why? I've never been up front to give a talk other than like a little talk at school or something. But they wanted us to keep coming back and speaking. And so we started having, really at our home, we had a farmhouse and it was good size. And we had from 15 to 45 people a week at our home for classes. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
And we weren't not just, I was not just focusing on the Egyptian at that point in time, but we were really teaching about all kinds of philosophies and religions, because we wanted to be, I call it a cafeteria style.
Yeah.
We felt that there was good in all of them.
Right.
And so let's introduce people to these options, and they can choose bits and pieces really of what they feel is appropriate for them.
Right.
So we were, go ahead.
I'm sorry. What I'd like to do is, Rob, could you bring up the covers of their books, please? Because that way our audience can really see the titles of your books. And then I want to ask Carl a question. So this is a copy of, or the picture of Key of Life, Ortrun's book, the cover. And Earth Ascension, Nibiru and the Spirit Realm, Carl's book. I like both covers because they both, I think, really speak to the content of each of the books. Now, okay, here's the question: is that for Carl, why Nibiru, and for Ortrun, why Egyptian mysteries? So, Carl, if you could help us understand why you wrote about Nibiru, Earth's Ascension, and Nibiru.
Okay, I think that the Earth's ascension is the big picture, and it isn't just the Earth, but it's the ascension of humanity on the Earth and all life forms on the Earth. And Nibiru is going to be playing a significant role in that process. And my thought was that Nibiru is basically unknown by the general population. And starting in late December or early January, it's going to become visible to the naked eye. And they're not going to be able to keep it a secret anymore. They're going to have to come let people know what's happening and when it's going to happen and the effects that it's going to have. And I thought when it becomes public, there's going to be so many people with so many questions. I want Nibiru in the title, because this is a place that you can get some of your answers. And I honestly, I thought it would help a bit of book sales, but also it would help inform people, and I'm hoping alleviate some fear.
Yes.
And in the process of getting information about Nibiru from the book, they will get information about a lot of other things that are very positive and empowering. So I felt the book could be helpful in terms of their spiritual growth. And so that's the basic reason for Nibiru.
Okay. And so, because I read both books, and obviously I really read Ortrun's really, really well. And so what I really saw, Carl, is that your book has the very wide, big picture of ascension, and specifically Earth's ascension. And so it's the higher perspective, the wider lens, and how it all kind of comes together, not just globally, but universally. Right?
Yeah. Thank you, Neshi. There are only 13 chapters in the book. And there's a story of creation that comes out of the Urantia book that is, I think, a lot more accurate than anything our scientists have put together. but it's consistent with the scientist. It gives you more information.
Mm-hmm.
And then most people, I think, are totally unaware that our universe is a very minuscule part of the third creation, which also comes from the Urantia book. And the third chapter then deals with the ascension of the earth and the ascension of humanity. And the fourth chapter deals with where are we in the ascension process. And the fifth one, the steps that we're going to be taking as we move into not only a fifth dimensional planet, but when we personally move into a fifth dimensional level of consciousness. And the high end of the fifth dimensional consciousness is Christ consciousness. And when we attain that, everything that Jesus did, he said we could do, that will be our ability with. So it's for us personally, it's a humongous step growth or step forward. Also, the sixth chapter then deals with Nibiru, and the seventh chapter, to me, is the most important chapter in the book. I think very few people fully understand what it means to be human, and that only 1/4 of us is temporarily here, and that 3/4 of us are eternal. And our emphasis needs to be on the eternal part of us, which is our mental body, our emotional body, and our soul body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who we are after they leave this physical body, and this physical body is what we call dead. But there's no loss of consciousness in that whole process. And the next chapter deals with death and dying, what it is, what happens after we die. And then we go into the crystal and indigo children. Historically, 1% of Earth's population was advanced. That is, they had advanced DNA.
Mm.
And right now, well, I'm going to say for the last 4 or 5 years in my personal experience, at least 65% of the children that I see as Santa are coming in with this advanced DNA in IQs that are 30 to 40% higher than normal. All right. So we're touching on that. Then we also talk about the spirit realm and about the angels, a chapter on them, a chapter on the nature spirits that we call devas. And then another chapter dealing with inner earth.
Yeah.
So it covers what for me is the whole spectrum of spiritual metaphysics and what it is, where we're at, where we're going, how we're going to get there. So, you know, I felt I was compelled to share that, but I'm not a writer. I'm a horrible speller. I don't type. And so how do you write a book? Well, you get a computer program and you talk the book to the computer.
Yes.
And then you go back and edit and re-edit and re-edit and re-edit.
Yes, yes.
But it's the only way I could do it. And it turned out, I think, not fantastic, but it turned out okay.
Oh, I think it's a great book.
Me too.
And his book is so much a representation of who he is, and mine is so much representation of who I am. I jokingly always say that Carl is the balloon, and I'm doing it's holding on to the string of the balloon to keep him down on Earth. Because he's always thinking, is always out there.
That is a great metaphor, though, because I've read both books and I know both of you. I think that's a really good metaphor because, and it's a nice segue into sharing with us, Ortrun, about why the Egyptian mysteries and how are they supposed to be relatable today in our physical lives today. So.
Well, the ancient Egyptian mysteries, first of all, I got into that because of Coptics. Then I was able to visit Egypt also and recognize that it had a few lives there because there are various temples and pyramids that were more important to me than others. Mm-hmm. And you, of course, saw the key of life all over the place. So when I started looking at information about mystery schools, and of course I was going to look more into the Egyptian because that's what I was focusing more onto, because we became Coptic ministers, which means, by the way, it means Egyptian Christians. But these mystery schools are actually what you might relate to in a church setting. There's the outer teaching and then the inner teachings, more like the monks those that go off to seminary, kind of. So that's more of an inner teaching. We're starting to focus within. So first and foremost, that's really important in this modern day and age, is that we focus within so that we can start recognizing that we have a relationship inside of us. Most of us are probably brought up saying that God is out here and we're just always trying to reach him because he's always out here. And so when you're praying, when you start praying, most of the time you start like this because you have to keep your head bowed because you can't even look at, because you're so just so broken. Let's just say that. But then eventually you get to the point where then you start looking up and you're saying, holding your hands up more, and you're starting to point your hands, and they're always right here by the heart, because the heart is actually where the decision making place is, what you're on your path. So even the cross, the regular Christian cross, that's a path. It's a symbol of a path, as is the Ankh. So when you get to that part where it crosses over, that is where your decision making point is. You can either decide to go on up into higher levels of consciousness and awareness, or you can decide to go back down or take a different path because you're not ready for it. So the symbology of it, I thought, was extremely good. But then we start praying. Finally we get to the point where we open up our arms, and now we're at least allowing energy to come in more openly. We're not shutting ourselves off anymore. We open ourselves up so that the energies can come in. One of the things that I found with individuals was, because they never really cared so much about all the earthly self, I'm going to say, they kept getting all this energy and accumulating, and it would stop right here. So the book teaches them how to bring that energy, that divine energy, and then start bringing it down through the rest of the chakras. These upper chakras, the higher, that's what really be represented by the pharaoh in the or the queens and kings in the ancient Egyptian times, where the common people was from, I'm going to say, the waist on down. But these energies needed to be brought, these divine energies need to be brought through both hearts and be grounded into the planet. And then that recognition that how sacred our divine Mother Gaia is, Grandmother Earth is, and then realize that in order for us to bring the that of the heaven to earth, you need to open up all the chakras. And the more I studied, the more I found that in the ancient Egyptian times, there's a whole symbological explanation of what the Nile River is, what the temples are along the Nile. So the Nile River actually is the fluids that are running around our spinal column, where the base of it is called the djed, which is the base, the solid foundation, like your spinal column. And so this fluidity runs around the column, and then the different temples along the Nile, they represent different chakras within us. So, and then when there's like the inundation of the Nile, or when it comes from the mountains, the rain and so on, and everything melts and comes down from the mountains, and then the water inundates these temples, it's washing us over with higher levels of consciousness. So there's so much symbology just in when you look at a picture of the Nile with the temples around it. And the more, again, I studied, I found that there were ones that studied and found that the temples along the Nile, especially the Luxor, that temple, there was an individual, his last name's Labatz, and he was from France. And he found that like the foyer was a certain proportion to the main sanctuary, and on and on. So just it would be this proportion to us from our feet to our knee, and from our knee on up, the different parts of the complex. And really, truly, to this day, the churches are built in that manner. The ones that are maybe not so much the ones, even maybe so with the newer churches, but the ones like your Catholic churches, there's that kind of foundation if you look at it. So all of these temples represented man. We are the temple. We are the temples of man. And we're that reflection. And then when he goes further, he finds that the same kind of a pattern and proportion is going on up in the Milky Way galaxy. And there in the Milky Way galaxy, you've got the different planets. There are the ones that are in the foreground, and there are the ones that are a little bit more sub. So you come up with the same pattern as along the Nile that runs within you, around up and down your spinal column. So with that, then we're this understanding as above, so below, that we are actually holograms, that we're an aspect of the divine. So it just was a growth, and just understanding a little bit more and more and more and more. And really, truly, we are Temple of Man. We have the system within us. The ancient ones knew of that. So they had the different temples, and they may not have focused on, they focused on one of the chakras mainly, but they involved all of the chakras. So no matter what temple school you went to, you didn't just learn about one. And there, I mean, even though you were working there, the other essences were there also. And they were there for a time period. And eventually, you accumulated all of the different energies from all the different temples. And we really have 144,000 energy centers within our body. So one other thing I want to mention, because I know I'm really talking a lot, is that Carl mentioned in his book about the death process. Well, the Egyptians are very well known for their life, death, resurrection process. And if you went to a Catholic church, you certainly, you learned those kind of things. I know many have gotten away from that kind of thinking, but that goes again down to our cellular level, because we're constantly dying and being reborn. Even the cells, they die and new ones are born. So, and this is everywhere within us. So that process is one that they were very much aware of. And it's seen every place you look. It's in our calendars, for instance, the different seasons. The death season is winter. Getting ready for that time of death is the fall, where then you're gathering together, and so that you can hunker down and go within, and then connect with the inner self, so that you can sleep. Basically, you're sleeping because you're going into the subconscious in the winter, so that you can then wake up again in the morning. Yeah. Every day is new. That song, "Morning Has Broken." It's so true. It's a new morning. We have died and we have resurrected. I can go on and on about symbologies like that. But with Carl, he's showing the outer. He's showing, it's not really outer, but it's the greater picture. And for me is, okay, this ascension process, but how do you get there? And these are just different techniques.
I almost titled this show "As Above, So Below," as within, so without, because really, when you bring both your books together, that's what it reminds me of, is that it is a metaphor. It is a symbol of that phrase that's so famous, right? I mean, Thoth, right? Said it. Yeah. And so you get what we receive from you is so much more than a life story. Your life story is in there, yes, but the message is so much bigger, especially when you bring both books together.
Yeah.
And I do want to pause just for a second here, because we have a lot of people in the chat with us, and I just wanted to let you know who's all here. So Rob, if you're available, could you bring up a few of the names for us, please? Cindy Ferris is here. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Cindy. Welcome.
And Rob is also replying from YouTube. Ellen Bartos is here. Hello, Ellen.
Hi, Ellen.
Rob is saying hello from Facebook
Live. Hi, Rob.
Oh, this is me. This is me asking our audience if they wouldn't do us a favor, please. Yeah, and I was telling everybody, kindred spirits, Ortrun and Carl. Yeah. Pat's here with us too, Pat McDonald. Hi, Pat. And look who's here. Judy's here too, Judy Brager. Hello to you too.
Oh, yes.
Cosmic Gypsy, isn't that a cool name? Hello to my two
I
favorite.
know who it is, but I can't remember right now. Oh, I think
Lynette.
yes, Lynetta. Is that?
Yeah, Lynetta. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's a great name. Oh, and Cindy's asking a really good question here, Carl. Do you have foresight on December 21st, 2020? I believe she's asking about December 21st, winter solstice, 2020.
I do not have a whole lot of information on that, but what has been coming in really strong is mid-October. And I hesitate because whenever they mention a date, it never turns out to be what we expect.
Right.
And but this mid-October, they're predicting some people, and some of the channelings, they're referring to it as the event, which is a major single event that's going to be happening. I don't know if it's going to be that or not, but I personally feel that in about 3 weeks, there is going to be, it may not be a single event. It may be like when 2012, there was a lot of hullabaloo about that. And what happened? We really didn't know. Mm-hmm. But in retrospect, we can see that what happened was it was a turning point. Mm-hmm. And you didn't realize until you were 4 or 5 years down the road, and you can look back and say, oh, yes. And I think that mid-October could be something like that. Mm-hmm. Or it could be a major event. I don't know. But I'm going to strongly urge you that to meditate not only daily, but even they're saying spend as much time meditating as you can. If you've got just, sit down in a 2-minute meditation, all right? And just send the world and send yourself a lot of love and a lot of light, and keep yourself at the highest frequency you can. Keep your chakras open, because there is going to be a transformation in individuals that's going to be taking place in mid-October. Mm-hmm. And that can only take place if it's a worldwide event, which means the planet is affected as well as us. So it's supposed to be a real step up. And there may be symptoms leading up to it. There may be symptoms that follow us, the classic ascension symptoms. But the higher you can raise your vibration in preparation for that, the easier it'll be on you. And the more you can help to multiply and amplify that energy that will be coming in, okay? And I'm sorry, I don't have anything clear on the 21st, but I think the fall equinox for me personally was another upgrade in my own level of consciousness. And I wouldn't be surprised if December 21st isn't even more of that. Mm-hmm. And then mid-October, maybe even a bigger kick in the butt. All right. So.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really going to get our attention.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I really, no matter what it's called. And I think that I like the way you said that, Carl, about, it was such a big hullabaloo, right? And I think that if we can consider that it's not Earth linear time,
right,
as much as it is a spatial time. So in other words, from one feeling or emotion to another, whether depending on what you feel around fall and all of how you take it in, to everything what you feel about winter and when you take it in. It's this window of a space, like when you open a window, rather than an actual hard date or time going from, because as two-leggeds, we tend to do that. We tend to try to make things more linear.
Neshi, one of the things I've realized is that the messages that we're getting in the channel information are coming from beings that have never lived in linear time.
Correct.
Yes.
And they don't understand linear time because they've never experienced it. Right. So if they try to give dates, they have to be off.
Right.
So don't take it too seriously on a particular date.
And vice versa, when we're in a physical body, sometimes it's difficult for us to think of events or occasions or those kinds of things outside of linear time.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
because that's all we know.
That's right. While we're in this body, that's really our framework, our the borders around our picture, right?
Mhm.
But in terms of, again, the big picture, I think the important thing for each of us individually and collectively as a human race is, in this process, our goal is to go within and connect with and begin to communicate, to dialogue with our divine soul. And our soul, to me, is a microcosm of the creator of the universe.
Yes, yes, and yes.
And it is well, it's the closest and the easiest way to connect with the divine and to reach the point where our trust is so great that we say, hey, this isn't my body. This isn't my mind. These aren't my emotions. I want them all to come to emanate from you. And let your soul express itself as fully and completely as it chooses through your physical vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what Jesus did, and that's what he meant when he said, my Father and I are one. He had become one with his divine soul. And he said, I'm not the one doing the work, it's the Father in me. It was the divine within himself that was doing the healings and the miracles.
Right, right.
And I think that's what we're here to learn.
Yeah, I do.
And with Nibiru passing, there is a real strong possibility that life here on Earth could be really, really rough. Okay, in terms of weather, climate, of food availability, etc. And one of my personal goals is I want to, by the time it comes, and it's slated for, well, it'll be it'll get more so during as we go through 21, and the high point's going to be around February of 1922. I want to be able to take a morsel of food and multiply it to feed my family and the neighbors. And Jesus said we could do it.
Yeah.
He showed us how.
Right.
And what I'm talking about is how we can do that. And if we can do that, we can be just literally miracle workers and beneficial to so many people.
Absolutely.
And especially
Absolutely.
to be able to help our loved ones in that way. So
yeah.
that's
And
where I'm at. That's what it's about.
Oh, thank
Well,
you, Carol.
and my book,
Yes. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
my book is basically about how you can, start connecting with that divine within. And I don't know if the individuals out there know or not, but this is actually the articles I've written for Star Nations for the past almost 7 years. I think I've been doing that, writing an article almost every month. And these are those articles. And with that, I always do a meditation. So I try and maybe have or talk maybe about an outer experience, something that may have happened on the outer, and then have lead you then into a more of a spiritual perspective on that. And then I also lead you into meditation so that you can even get a closer integration of that by that meditation, that visualization of connecting yourself, the outer, with your inner self. So it's a good combination. He's got interesting ideas, really, they're hard to understand and think, well, how in the world am I ever going to reach what he's talking about? But we don't have to all reach that. We all have our purpose here, and he may be gearing to that. So that's what he's meant to do. But you may be there to help with your little nucleus. And that's what you need to do. The thing that's most important is for you to be here on this planet Earth, because you are one of the links in that chain. And you are needed there, your energy is needed there, so that the planet can be uplifted properly. So know that what you're doing is just as important, really, as what Carl's doing or what I'm doing. Because if we didn't have those other pieces, nothing would happen, because it would fall apart.
Right.
So I know that we are part of the whole, that we are all meant to do this together.
Yeah.
And here's the thing is okay, guys, audience, this is how I took it in, okay, is that we have this opportunity that's coming that if we can hold that vibration high enough and long enough, that we're going to experience something that hasn't been experienced here on Earth for a very, very long time, if ever. And then
Yeah.
how do you do that? Then I turn to Ortrun, and it's like what she's telling me is to mind my own vibration, to do what I have to do, because there's guidance. If we're looking for help, there's guidance that we can find our own vibration, get our vibration to that of love, so that we can remember how to hold that for as long as we possibly can. And all the other stuff that Carl's talking about will unfold for us when it's meant to unfold for us. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys
Okay.
heard, but that's what I heard.
Yeah, Neshi, I want to add to that if I can.
Sure.
The title is Living in Two Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're talking about here is living in two worlds, connecting the two worlds and getting the direction and the guidance and a lot of the energy from the unseen world, from the spirit world, and manifesting that through us in the physical world. So as we talk to the nature spirits, and I've told you my story about, you can control weather by working with the divas of the air and the divas of the clouds and the rain, all right? And we all have that ability and to work on ourselves and to ask for guidance and follow the guidance and be faithful and to communicate. Meditation is almost mandatory if you want effective, good communication.
And meditation is much easier than you realize.
Yes.
Yes.
We think that we have to sit there for half an hour or an hour and not move, but that's not so.
No.
We are in that alpha state so many times that we don't even realize that. Carl and I, we always tell our clients, that's one of the first things we teach them is as you're going to sleep at night, as you're waking up, you're drifting through that alpha state. That alpha state is the vibratory frequency of the meditative state. So you're connecting there.
Yeah.
If you're aware of that, you can pause at that point and maybe do a 5-minute meditation, maybe longer, and then you can plan your day if you're doing this in the morning. And then as you're going to sleep at night, you can plan your dreams. You can plan what it is that's going to be occurring. But the other thing that Carl and I are really, really very, very, I think, honest and stringent about is keep yourself protected, because there are positive and negative energies floating around everywhere. So when you're in your meditation time or any other time that you feel like it, fill yourself with divine radiant light and love, and have we say everyone, we believe everyone has a spirit family. Have them gather around you and surround you with divine radiant light and love, so that you are strong and more powerful. And because you become more powerful because that inner part of you starts to wake up and that strength begins to show. I'm going to give a real simple example. Way back in my physical world when I was a systems analyst. And it was a time when it was very much a man's world there. I was for a long time, I was the only woman there. And those men, they were so strong because, the men, they have this powerful energy. And I would try and say something and they would just blow me away into the corner. And so one of the techniques, and this was one that helped me tremendously, before I ever went into a meeting, I'd take a few deep breaths and ask that. At that time, I would say, okay, God's will is spoken through me, or divine will is spoken through me. And I'd walk in there and I was heard. I wasn't pushed in the corner anymore. Whether I was going to get a raise, whether I was asking for a raise or whatever it might have been, it worked because I took on my inner strength by just doing that little exercise. And those are the kinds of things that we can do to connect with that inner aspect of self, so that we can have a better world out here. So it looks better on the outside.
Good.
And she always got a raise, and everybody after she got her raise, then they would have the courage to go in and
No,
ask
they
for
wouldn't, they even wouldn't even go in, they would just give everyone also a raise. They let, wait,
Oh, good for you for leading the way. All right, so I'm watching. Yeah, I'm watching the time, so I want to make sure I fit this one question in here, as well as where can people get your book? Because your books. So you can go to their website, ourspiritualascension.com. Rob, if you can put that in the comments, that would be great. And you know, if you want to get your own copy, that would be wonderful. And to be able to read both books and see how they work for you individually and also as a community too. So here's something that I want to ask you a little bit more mundane is as a married couple and you each individually worked on your books, what about, was it 3 years separate? First it was Carl's book.
Carl's came out first.
I've only been on about 18 months, so about a year and a half apart.
Year and a half apart.
Yours
Okay.
was only a year and a half before mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Really feels like a lot longer between. And then Ortrun's, we started working on it in 2018, I think it was, or maybe late 2017. We started talking about it. And then when you are working on your book as a married couple, supporting each other. When your books were close to being published, what was that like for you? Because those moments or that time frame between the actually finishing the work, it's in book form, but it's not quite approved yet. And I, first of all, did you each read each other's manuscripts?
Oh, yes.
We did. Right. And Carl, he actually with the articles, he would read them. He was like the first edit. And he would give me some ideas to say something. And as you said, you know, then it went on to eventually, and your husband actually read things at one point. So, but Carl's technique was very different than mine. So tell him about how yours came about.
I'm not stressful. I don't worry. And I know that things are going to flow. They're going to be in divine order. And I have to get out of the way, and I don't want to put any negative energy into there by worry and concern, etc. So it flowed.
Well, he really feels it was channeled.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Right. And I think mine also was, but I'm more of a researcher also because I'm bringing this information or suggestions down into the planet. So if I'm saying something, if someone goes and looks up some information about what I wrote, I want to make sure that it is correct because I feel that there's certain things you can look them up and it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Even I know I had an editor and he'd go look up things just to see if I was really right. Yeah. And which doesn't bother me. That's just fine. I thought it was great. And my current editor, she does that also because I can see the difference. You know, I can see where she inserted something, which is fine. But sometimes I actually leave things out, you know, because I don't want that particular statement or something. So he's more just allowed it. I'm going to say the flow. For me, I did the monthly thing where I wrote the articles every month.
Yep.
And then and it's more research than that. And a lot of, you know, is because I already knew things. I would write what I could, but then basically try to back it up in some form. And I try to show that we are all connected, all the different philosophies and teachings. They're connected. They're just being spoken in different ways. Because for me, I was raised Catholic, but Catholic means universal. And so for me, the universal always stood up for me from the time I was a little babe. And I felt that embracing the universe, embracing all. So that's a real big thrust on my particular one and focus.
Yeah. I just want to clarify is that Ortrun writes for Star Nations magazine. Both Carl and she had both at one time. And then Ortrun continued to write. And so what we did was we took all of her articles from late 2013 all the way to 2020, early 2020, and compiled. It was a real process because there was a lot of good information, which ones to take, and Ortrun went through, and it was all her personal selection. and
Yeah.
and then literally had to do some extra writing with it to kind of put it in a focus and linking things together and that sort of thing. So
Yeah,
it was a
Neshi,
lot of, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that Ortrun really, what she did was she weaved together those articles that could have been seen, they were standalone,
Mhm,
and weaved them together into what we call a book.
mhm, mhm.
But
Right.
just one of my emphasis throughout and interests throughout my lifetime has been science. And I find that particularly the quantum scientists, the astrophysics and so on, the very, I'm going to say the cutting edge of many of the sciences, they are explaining so much that theology and the Bible and religion has taught.
Mhm.
And they have expanded tremendously the concept of who God is and what God is, even though they themselves don't believe in God.
Right.
which is fascinating. So to be able to have, here's a scientific reason, for example, the Holy Spirit. Quantum physics explains the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And to be able to make these connections, for me, it's exciting.
I just love it when science finally catches up with spirit, you
Right.
know?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes. Or and puts a foundation under religious beliefs. Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just want to say, really, these two books, look how close they look as far as appearance. You know, there's different topics, but that's just what came out. That's what Spirit did for us. And it's really, they go together. I mean, if you want, you don't have to, of course, do this, but they're, it's like they belong together, as you said, because one is really the outer here, out there, the
As
universe
above, so below.
above, and then this is the below. So
Yeah.
yeah, we like it. We think it's a nice combination. We were very pleased with what came out of all of this.
Now, I have a wild idea. We haven't talked about this, so it's off the top of my head. If anybody wants to order both of these books, how about $25 instead of $15 each? All right.
That's you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you agreeable to that?
Oh, I am. I'm agreeable to that, but the only thing is contact us, because probably we would have to.
Yeah, you'd have to order it through,
way.
you have to order it through our website and then just pay by PayPal.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, you can pay with a credit card through PayPal,
Yeah.
but you would have to pay a different way than if you go onto our site,
Oh, I see.
because on the site there's a certain price. But if you get,
Okay, well, we could do that. What we could do is put in your email address in the comments, and so whoever would like to order both books at Carol's special price, what they can do is they can email you directly, right?
Yes,
So
that's right. Good.
if you could say your email address and where you'd like that email sent, Rob, if you're available, you can get that typed into the comments for everybody.
And we actually, whether you get a donation in our site or not, it's really it comes in. So you can write what it is that you want to get both. You can
give her the email address.
I thought he was going to show it.
You need
Oh,
to
the email.
Email. We got the
I don't have
Yeah. So she's
Okay,
going to say it. So if you could type it, that would be great, Rob.
Ortrun, ORTRUN 71 at AOL.com.
Okay.
So if you send it to that email and then just explain what it is that you want, and I'll just give you directions or walk you through.
Yeah.
And give us your mailing address, of course, and give us your name, because then we can sign the book for you.
Yes, if you order through us, you will always get a signed book. That's one of the advantages of coming through us, is that signed book. Or if you order by Amazon, and I think Lulu, right?
It'd be Amazon or Barnes and Noble or Lulu.com.
Okay.
Yeah,
But with them, you don't get a signed copy.
and also you get a little special gift.
Yeah. So go through Ortrun's email address if you'd like both books. Let them know that's what you'd like, and then you'll have to give your personal information, your name, postal address, that kind of thing. Okay. So go ahead and contact Ortrun, and they'll take care of you. I'm being called. That would be my
Very
mother.
Our time is over.
Yes.
So I wanted to thank both of you for making time for us, right? And being co-hosts of Living in Two Worlds.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Neshi. Thank you, Rob. And thank you for everyone who's taking time to view and listen to this.
That's right. That's right.
We bless you all.
We
Thank
do.
you.
Thank you
We
so
love
much.
you.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody. We'll see you next month for Living in Two Worlds.
Yes. Bye-bye now.